The world watched with a sense of deep unease as a new concerning partnership began to crystallize on the global stage. North Korea, a nation long defined by its profound isolation and secretive nature, started to play an unexpectedly visible and significant role in a major international conflict. This role was not one of diplomacy or peaceful overtures, but rather one of direct military support. The implications of this emerging alliance were immediately clear and profoundly troubling for many international observers and governments. This support was specifically for Russia's ongoing and intense war effort in Ukraine. Few analysts or policymakers had accurately predicted such a direct, substantial, and overt involvement from Pyongyang, a development that has reshaped geopolitical calculations. The heavy veil of secrecy that usually concealed North Korea's clandestine international activities was slowly but undeniably beginning to lift, revealing a stark new reality. The first subtle whispers of this burgeoning cooperation emerged around the middle of 2023. By September of that year, the initial signs had transformed into undeniable evidence of a significant military supply chain. Intelligence agencies from various concerned nations began to meticulously track unusual and large-scale movements of cargo. Ships flying Russian flags were observed making frequent trips to North Korean ports, and subsequently, trains were seen transporting substantial quantities of goods from Russia's Far East towards its western regions, closer to the conflict zone. These were clearly not shipments of ordinary trade goods. The nature and volume of the cargo strongly indicated military hardware and munitions. This heightened activity marked a distinct and alarming shift in the relationship between Moscow and Pyongyang, signifying a clear escalation of their strategic cooperation. The Hermit Kingdom was transitioning into an open supplier for a major global conflict. The critical groundwork for this extensive and multifaceted support system was carefully laid at the highest echelons of both governments. A series of high-level meetings between senior officials from both nations signaled the dawn of a new chapter in their bilateral relations. Most notably, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a significant summit in September 2023, where they engaged in detailed discussions about deepening the ties between their countries. These diplomatic engagements were far from being merely symbolic gestures. They resulted in concrete, actionable agreements. The pacts forged during these meetings covered a wide array of areas, with a particular emphasis on military and technical assistance. This direct, face-to-face diplomacy proved crucial in solidifying the commitment of both nations to provide mutual support, a development that sent ripples of concern throughout the international community. This burgeoning alliance between North Korea and Russia appears to be fundamentally built upon a foundation of shared interests and pressing mutual needs. Russia, deeply entrenched in a prolonged and resource-intensive war in Ukraine, found itself in urgent need of vast quantities of artillery shells, rockets, and other essential munitions, as its own stockpiles began to dwindle under the relentless pressure of sustained combat operations. North Korea, on the other hand, perceived a unique and valuable opportunity within this dynamic. By providing this critical military support, Pyongyang could potentially gain access to desperately needed resources, including essential food supplies, fuel to power its economy, and perhaps most importantly, advanced military technology from Russia. It also presented a chance for North Korea to assert its relevance on the global stage and to challenge the international sanctions regime that has long constrained it. The sheer scale of North Korea's military aid to Russia has been truly staggering, far exceeding initial, more conservative estimates. Official reports and intelligence assessments indicate that since the concerted supply efforts began in earnest around September 2023, North Korea has dispatched over 20,000 shipping containers packed with various types of munitions to Russia. This massive volume translates into an enormous quantity of firepower delivered to the front lines. Specifically, it is believed that up to 9 million artillery shells have been part of these transfers. These shells include common and heavily used calibers, such as 122mm and 152mm, which are crucial for sustaining Russia's intense ground operations in Ukraine. In addition to artillery shells, various types of rocket munitions have also formed a significant component of these extensive deliveries. Russian-flagged commercial vessels have played a pivotal role in transporting these military goods by sea, from North Korean ports to Russia's Far Eastern ports, from where they are subsequently transported by rail to ammunition depots in southwestern Russia, closer to the Ukrainian border. Beyond the vast quantities of basic artillery shells and rockets, North Korea has also supplied Russia with more sophisticated and destructive armaments. It has been documented that at least 100 advanced ballistic missiles identified by experts as either Hwasong-11A or Hwasong-11B models have been transferred from Pyongyang to Moscow. Disturbingly, these missiles have already been deployed by Russian forces to strike targets within Ukrainian cities, leading to civilian casualties and significant damage to infrastructure. The extensive shipments have also reportedly included other heavy weaponry, such as 170mm self-propelled artillery guns and powerful 240mm multiple rocket launcher systems. Furthermore, North Korea has helped bolster Russia's anti-tank capabilities by providing systems like the Bullseye-4 anti-tank missiles and various RPG anti-tank rockets. Forensic analysis of missile debris recovered in Ukraine has revealed components bearing manufacturing marks such as 113, strongly indicating that some of this equipment was produced as recently as 2024, highlighting the current and ongoing nature of this supply. The deepening military cooperation between these two nations extends beyond the mere transfer of material. It now also involves a significant human element. Recent intelligence reports suggest that a substantial contingent of over 11,000 North Korean troops has been deployed to Russia. This deployment is understood to have commenced around October 2024. While the precise roles of all these soldiers are not entirely clear, it is believed that a primary purpose for many of them is to gain valuable military experience and undergo training. This arrangement provides North Korea's sizable army with crucial exposure to the conditions and tactics of modern warfare, knowledge that would be otherwise difficult to obtain. It represents a significant development, indicating a deeper level of military integration and trust between the two regimes. Russia, in turn, likely benefits from this additional manpower for various support roles, training exercises, or even potential integration into its own military structures. Perhaps the most alarming and controversial dimension of this evolving cooperation is the credible allegation of North Korean soldiers actively participating in combat operations on Ukrainian battlefields. Multiple sources have reported that approximately 11,000 North Korean soldiers have been sent not just for training in Russia, but to fight directly alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. There are further reports suggesting that an additional 3,000 reinforcements were dispatched more recently to bolster these numbers. Shockingly, both North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin have made public statements that appear to confirm this involvement, with some reports quoting them as describing these North Korean troops as heroes. This direct participation of foreign combat troops from a third country significantly raises the stakes in the conflict. It signifies an even closer, more dangerous, and operationally integrated alliance between Moscow and Pyongyang, with profound implications for the war's trajectory. The substantial influx of North Korean weaponry into the Ukraine conflict has had a demonstrably severe and devastating impact on the ground. These arms, particularly the artillery shells and ballistic missiles, are not solely being utilized against military targets on the front lines. Evidence strongly suggests that they have been systematically employed by Russian forces to terrorize populated urban areas across Ukraine. Critical civilian infrastructure, including power plants, water treatment facilities, and residential buildings in numerous Ukrainian cities, has suffered extensive damage or complete destruction as a direct result of attacks involving these weapons. Major cities such as Kyiv, the nation's capital, along with other significant urban centers like Kharkiv and Zaporizhia, have acutely felt the terror inflicted by these bombardments. The use of these North Korean-supplied weapons has enabled Russia to intensify its missile and artillery attacks, leading to increased suffering for the Ukrainian civilian population and a deepening humanitarian crisis. This burgeoning military cooperation is not a one-sided affair. It functions as a two-way street, although the nature of the goods and services exchanged differs significantly. Russia, in return for the vast quantities of desperately needed munitions it receives from North Korea, is reportedly providing Pyongyang with valuable military technology, expertise, and essential resources. This reciprocal support includes the transfer of advanced air defense systems, with at least one Pantsir-class short to medium-range air defense vehicle confirmed to have been delivered to North Korea. Additionally, short-range air defense capabilities, anti-aircraft missiles, and sophisticated electronic warfare systems are believed to be part of this exchange package. Russia has also been involved in training North Korean military personnel. Crucially, and in direct contravention of international sanctions, Russia has been supplying North Korea with refined petroleum products, far exceeding the limits imposed by the United Nations Security Council. The rapidly evolving relationship between Moscow and Pyongyang has been further solidified and formalized through the signing of significant bilateral agreements. The groundwork for this was laid during a series of high-level meetings, most notably the summit between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin in the Russian Far East in September 2023, which paved the way for enhanced cooperation. A landmark development in this process was the signing of a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty in June 2024. This treaty contains a particularly crucial and potentially game-changing clause, a commitment from both nations to provide immediate mutual military aid if either country is attacked by a third party. Such a defense pact has profound and far-reaching implications for regional stability in Northeast Asia, and for global security dynamics more broadly. It signals a clear intent for a long-term strategic alignment between these two heavily sanctioned states, united by their opposition to the current international order. Beyond the direct exchange of hardware, North Korea is not merely acting as an arms supplier in this arrangement. It is also strategically positioning itself as a learner, aiming to benefit technologically from the conflict. There are credible indications from military analysts that the operational accuracy of North Korean ballistic missiles, historically a point of concern, is showing signs of improvement. This enhancement is reportedly due, at least in part, to the invaluable real-world combat data and performance feedback gathered from their extensive use by Russian forces in Ukraine. Furthermore, North Korea is actively and openly seeking Russian technical assistance for its troubled spy satellite program, a key priority for Kim Jong-un's regime. This technological exchange is a powerful motivator for Pyongyang. Investigators from organizations like Conflict Armament Research have also discovered newly manufactured electronic components in the guidance systems of North Korean missiles used in Ukraine that were not of North Korean origin, suggesting sophisticated international efforts to procure sensitive technology and bypass existing sanctions. The extensive military cooperation unfolding between North Korea and Russia represents a blatant and unambiguous violation of long-standing international law and norms. For many years, multiple resolutions passed by the United Nations Security Council have imposed a stringent sanctions regime on North Korea. These comprehensive sanctions were meticulously designed and implemented with the specific aim of curbing Pyongyang's illicit nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs, which are seen as a grave threat to international peace and security. By engaging in large-scale arms transfers, encompassing millions of artillery shells and advanced missile systems, both North Korea and Russia are openly defying these legally binding UN resolutions. Russia's role in this is particularly egregious. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, it bears a special responsibility to uphold and enforce these very sanctions. Its current actions, therefore, are profoundly damaging to the integrity and efficacy of the international non-proliferation regime and undermine the foundational principles of the global security architecture. The international community has not remained silent in the face of these alarming developments. A broad coalition of nations led by the United States and including 10 key allies such as Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, has issued strong and unequivocal condemnations of these activities. These countries have formally accused both North Korea and Russia of unlawfully and flagrantly undermining the UN sanctions regime through their military partnership. A significant challenge to international oversight arose in March 2024 when Russia exercised its veto power in the UN Security Council to block the renewal of the mandate for the UN panel of experts responsible for monitoring sanctions enforcement against North Korea. In response to this obstruction, a new body, the Multilateral Sanctions Monitoring Team, was formed. This team released its first comprehensive 29-page report on May 30, 2025, meticulously detailing the illicit cooperation and warning that both nations plan to deepen their military ties further. Ukraine, as the direct victim of the weapons supplied by North Korea to Russia, is understandably taking its own concrete steps to address this hostile involvement. On May 20, 2025, The Verkhovna Rada, which is Ukraine's national parliament, initiated a significant legislative move. It proposed a draft resolution aimed at officially recognizing the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, as an aggressor state. This formal designation is a direct consequence of Pyongyang's substantial military support for Russia's full-scale invasion and its impact on the Ukrainian people. Such a designation, if passed, would serve to further isolate North Korea on the international diplomatic stage. It also powerfully underscores the serious and tangible threat that Ukraine perceives from this deepening alliance between Moscow and Pyongyang. The parliamentary proposal highlights the real-world impact these weapon transfers are having on the battlefields and cities of Ukraine. The current disturbing situation must be understood within its broader historical context. The United Nations sanctions against North Korea are not a recent phenomenon. They were first imposed by the Security Council following Pyongyang's inaugural nuclear weapons test in 2006. Since that initial step, these sanctions have been progressively and significantly tightened through a series of 10 subsequent resolutions, each adding new layers of restrictions on trade, finance, and arms. The last major tightening of this sanctions regime occurred in December 2017. However, in more recent years, the unity and resolve of the UN Security Council on this issue have visibly fractured. A critical turning point was May 2022, when both China and Russia jointly exercised their veto power to block a new UN resolution that aimed to impose further sanctions on North Korea in response to its continued missile tests. This joint veto signaled a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape, possibly emboldening both Pyongyang and Moscow in their current course of expanded cooperation.